Hi there and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial we are going to paint in watercolors some flowers in a flower vase as in American English, or a flower vase. I hope you enjoy this tutorial and paint along with me. For this tutorial I'm using Arches watercolor paper 300 GSM. I will put a list of the supplies below in the description box. I'm using professional grade watercolors Windsor Newton, and in this palette I have student grade watercolors. You can use either of them. I'm using a block of watercolor paper. If you have a single sheet of paper, please tape it to the desk. And then I take 2 jugs of water. One is for cleaning the brushes and one is for using clean water on the paper. The brushes I use are Raphael number 2 and Iris number 1. I'll put a list of these also in the description below. So I apply water to the paper just randomly and splash some water too. The first color I use is yellow, and at this point I really don't know what I'm doing. It's more or less an abstract painting and I just go along with it once I see shapes. My Instagram page is at brainrose.art, and if you look at that page you will see that I paint very loosely in watercolors. The colors that I'm using here are Windsor Yellow, Alizarin Crimson and Windsor Blue. I now make random shapes on the paper, either in circles, and loosely take more paint and just apply it to the paper. I make an orange color here from Windsor Yellow and Alizarin Crimson. I also put in a little of lemon yellow. I take lemon yellow now and again make some marks. I would recommend that you do a trial first to see if the colors are blending with each other. Otherwise they'll make a muddy mark on your paper. So I now add greens and I just place them randomly onto the paper. I think it is at this point that I start seeing some shapes and make deliberate leaf shapes, but I'm still keeping the painting loose. I turn it in different angles and I add on more color. Sometimes I wait for the colors to dry, but in this particular case I want the colors to merge, so I'm just mixing colors on the wet paper. Here I let the paper dry and now do another layer. Again I still keep it very loose and you can see the colors not blending into each other here, so I just put a little darker shade onto the paper and make them look like flowers. I suddenly noticed the slight line over there and I tried to see if I can make a flower vase or a flower vase, and I feel I could do it, so I keep adding on darker colors and forming the shape of a vase or a vase. That's the beauty of watercolors. You see shapes all of a sudden emerging from the paint that you have laid down on the paper. So just go with the flow. You don't even have to paint it very realistic. That's the whole point of painting or drawing, just impressions. So now I go and add in some more darks after the paper has been dried thoroughly in between, and make some more marks on the paper by adding darker shades to the greens. After making the flower vase, I realized that there are lots of flowers in the vase, but we'll work on that. We can either leave it as is, or it could be a reflection of the flowers, or let's see, when I reach there, I'll think what I want to do. The marks you just seen me making are also called the dry brush technique. You don't take water on the brush, but just pull the paint. I put another layer of darks. I don't give shape to each petal. I just make random shapes and insinuate that there's a flower in there. The brush that I'm using is a really good brush, Raphael number 2. It holds in a lot of paint and water. And I love making marks with that particular brush. So at every stage I keep looking at the paper. I add some black color to the yellow ochre that I had in the pan and the orange, and made a darker brown and just applied it with again a dry brush technique. So that's what I got, and that's what I felt was perfect, and I would have stopped at this point. I would just make some random last minute marks, and I would have stopped at this point if I was painting a watercolor painting. I'm just giving more form to the flower pot. And yeah, that's my painting. But then the next day I have a look at the painting again. You'll see I already signed on the painting, but next day I take the painting again, and then I feel like doing something. So I put yellow on the flower pot, and it makes it subdued, and it looks like as if there's a reflection. So these are watercolor crayons. Um, and they're still a part of watercolors, because if you put water on them, they turn into watercolors. So they're still a part of watercolors. I wouldn't term it as mixed media. You could take watercolor pencils or watercolor crayons and make some more marks if you want. So I'm just giving a little bit more definition, but where I had stopped earlier, I would have finished over there. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just giving an option. If you want to make more deliberate and realistic paintings, you could still go further. I think the entire video is in time lapse because it takes a lot of time. So if you want to see it in a slow motion, please change your settings on your device accordingly. I love the way now the vase has turned out, because previously it wasn't giving any definition within the vase. So now it looks more subdued and the flowers are getting more attention. So here I'm adding water to the crayons that I already put onto the paper. I do this very slowly, but like I said before, it's a time lapse, so it's the video is going fast, but otherwise I use this time very slowly as a meditation to think what I'm doing and to enjoy the process. I love my colors, and I usually tend to use very bright colors. I think bright colors make me very happy, so I use them because I can. Whatever makes you happy, you have to use those colors. You can add light and dark crayons, either way, to just increase, highlight the marks. At some places I have used light crayons to show the lights, but in this particular painting I've not used any source of light. I just thought I'd keep it very simple. In the first instance I didn't know what I was doing, so I didn't use any source of light. So here I'm adding more darks to the leaves, and the lighter ones can always be reflection. Keep turning the paper and look at the marks and add your darks or lights, whatever you want. At this point I'm taking just plain water and pulling the paint out of the marks that I'd made previously, and it gives a very different shade. If you haven't painted in watercolors before, you'll just love the way it flows on the paper. You have to buy watercolors paper, but otherwise you won't get the same results. I'm just adding water and pulling the existing paint onto the white paper, so it just makes beautiful watercolor marks. Earlier I had splashed some paint on the paper, some Windsor Blue paint, so it's picking up the hues of the blue color and it's giving a very beautiful shade of blue and greens mixed together. So that's all plain paints. I'm just using some water and diluting the existing paint. You would have to use watercolor paper to get this desired result. Otherwise the water will seep through the paper. And for those who are new to watercolors, I assure you it will be such a beautiful feeling once you see those paints on the paper. It just makes your heart sing. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And if you have any queries, please feel free to write them in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them. So that's what I've done, and I hope you like this, guys. I hope you enjoyed the process, and it was fun for me to do this. Thank you very much.